Okay, so hey there guys. So today's video is going to be products I want to use up in 2019. I don't normally use up anything. The most things that I use up would be like liquid products like foundations and concealers. We're going to be mostly talking about powder products today. I didn't really goal myself to use up or pan too many items this year because I know myself. I pretty much have hit pan on most of the items in my collection that I think I'm going to hit pan on already that I have. So for eyeshadows, it's going to be very, very basic stuff that I've been goaling myself to use up for a long time. I forgot to grab one more thing. Sorry about that. I think it's, oh my god, where is it? It's in this drawer. Sorry. Right here. Sorry about that. So, and I forgot to grab this other palette too. Oh my god, I'm such a mess. So I did goal myself to use some of these eyeshadows up like halfway through the year. Like I'm not gonna goal myself to use up any like eyeshadows from Makeup Geek or something besides like one. I pretty much have given up on goaling myself on foiled eyeshadows from Makeup Geek because I really don't really use them anymore. If I'm going to grab for single shadows, usually I grab for ColourPop. So that's why I'm going to goal myself mostly to concentrate on working on my ColourPop single shadows this year. The only one that I was able to hit pan on last year besides Firefly is Note to Self. I'm still currently working on Wake Up Call. I might have a tiny little indent in there, but like I saw a glimmer of like a pan. But it's just literally so difficult to hit pan on these. People say that there's like not that much product in them. Like from what I saw, when I remember I saw Stephanie Nicole's review. She said there's really not too much product in them. I'm wearing I'm wearing very minimal makeup today, by the way, because my boyfriend's supposed to pick me up at some point, and he texted me around like 1:40, and I haven't heard back from him yet. So I decided to film this video. So the two ColourPop shadows I'm going to concentrate on this year is Wake Up Call. I don't think this one's going to be very difficult for me to hit pan on this year, because I use this every single time that I use ColourPop shadows. It's just for some reason I was not able to hit pan on it last year. Like I have a huge dent in this one, so it shouldn't be any trouble for me to hit pan on it this year. So this is probably going to be the first eyeshadow that I pan this year, probably by the end of the month. I think if I use them a couple more times this month, I probably will be able to pan this one. So I'll be super excited about that. It looks like it has a tiny little glimmer, honestly, but no matter how much I rub my finger in here, it's still no pan, but I do feel like the bottom of the pan with my fingers. So, and then I'm just going to work on expanding the pan of Note to Self. As you guys can see, I did hit pan on this one last month, so I'm just going to continue to work on this one as well. And then I also want to try and hit pan on the shade Hear Me Out. This is probably my most used brow bone highlight besides Vanilla Bean. I use this almost every day now. And I just pull it out when I want to use a brow bone highlight, which is usually every day. If I use a palette and I don't have a brow bone highlight in it, this is usually the one I've been grabbing for every day. So I don't think this one's going to be too difficult for me to hit pan on either. And then the last one, I want to add just one more. Only going myself to really hit pan on 4 shades this year, which I think is a lot better than I usually do, because I usually over goal myself to hit pan on eyeshadows, which it is probably the easiest for me to hit pan on eyeshadows and powders and bronzers in my collection. That's why I'm not including any powders this year except for one, and I'm only including one bronzer because every other powder that I've included I've hit pan on, so I'm not going to like goal myself to use them up. I'll just try and use them up throughout the year. But the last one I want to talk about from ColourPop is the shimmer shade in Let Me Explain. This is my most used inner corner highlight, and I have a pretty good dent in it. It's such a stunning eyeshadow, but I do have a pretty big dent in it in the center right here. This is probably my most used inner corner highlight. When I use ColourPop, I love using it on the inner corners. It's so stunning. And I also love using it all over the lid. But it's probably my most grabbed for single shimmer shadow for 2018. So I'm going to start using it a lot more on my inner corners this year. I've already used it a couple of times this past week. It's just so stunning. You barely need any product. It basically, these have basically replaced my Makeup Geek shadows because I just reach for them so much more often. I still use my Makeup Geek, and I'm still going to try to use up Creme Brulee this year, and I'm probably going to use up Peach Smoothie and Beaches and Cream. Those are probably the 3 eyeshadows I'm going to use up from Makeup Geek, but I have pan in all of them, so I just don't typically use them as much as I used to, because I used to use them like every day for like neutral eye looks. But that's going to be it for the single shadows from ColourPop. And then I have one palette from ColourPop. I did mention this like late mid-year last year, so I want to try and goal myself to hit pan on at least one of the eyeshadows in the ColourPop Dream Street and Kathleen Lights palette. This is my most used ColourPop palette, and it's one of my most used palettes in my whole collection. I have pretty big dents in most of the matte shades in here. I actually have a pretty big dent in Water Bearer, but I want to concentrate on trying to pan Shooting Star and Magical. I use these 2 shades constantly when I do my transition shade for this palette. I either use this one as my transition or this one as my transition shade. So this one and this one, they're both like really pretty basic matte shades, and I use them constantly every single time I use this palette. So I want to try and hit pan on one of those. I'll see my progress halfway through the year. If I do hit pan on at least one, I might try and add in Moony as well. I use this one every time I do my brow bone, or I sometimes use this in my inner corners as well. So it would be those 3 shades I would want to concentrate on. But we'll see how we do throughout the year. Even Kathleen Lights, who uses this palette all the time, the only shade she has a lot of pan on is Shooting Star, so that's why I want to try and goal myself to use that one to hit pan on. So I have pretty good dents in them, as you can see. So we'll see if I end up panning any of these. That would be awesome, because this would be my 4th palette in my collection that I would have pan on certain eyeshadows. So that would be sick. So that is it for the ColourPop. Then like the last palette that's like practical for me to try and hit pan on would be the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. You guys know my progress in this palette. I made a bunch of progress in this palette this year. I hit pan on 5 eyeshadows in this palette, so I want to try and add in probably 3 more shades before I decide to declutter this from my collection. I'm probably not necessarily going to declutter it. I'm probably just going to, keep on using it until I absolutely think that it's just done, because a lot of people declutter this very early, because it does say for Anastasia palettes you're not supposed to use them after a year. Pretty much the formula only lasts about a year, and it's the same thing for Natasha Denona. It's a little bit more practical for Anastasia though, since Anastasia is like a fraction of the price compared to Natasha Denona. So it doesn't bother me as much if I would have to stop using an Anastasia palette over a Natasha Denona one. I do use the Natasha Denona one a lot more than this though right now, since that one's a brand new palette. It performs a lot better than this one. Again, I'm just not sure if I'm going to be keeping this in my rotation anymore, just because it really doesn't perform the way that it used to. So the one shade I really want to concentrate on is one Fresco. It's like one of my most used pinky kind of shades when I do like any kind of blushy tone look. The only thing is that I really do notice that this is the shade that has changed in color the most since I've gotten it. It's just very gray tone now. It used to be like a beautiful like mauve-y pink shade, and now I just feel like it's very gray tone, and it kind of looks very muddy in the crease, and it doesn't really blend out that well. So we'll see. I might give up on this palette though at some point. And then the other two would be Burnt Orange, which is a gorgeous crease shade, and I use this for almost every single neutral look that I use in this palette. And then Raw Sienna would be the other one, which I use as my defining shade usually 99% of the time, and possibly Golden Ochre. So we're gonna Golden Ochre. I'm like Golden Ochre. So I'm gonna concentrate on those four matte shades. Since I've already had pan in the two shimmer shades. So like I said, this is my progress right now. And I might even expand the pan more on Cypress Umber, but any of the other shades I don't really use as often as those four other shades that I mentioned, so we'll see. It would be awesome to have pan in 9 eyeshadows in this palette. That's more than half the palette, and I would consider myself using up the palette if I pan that many shades in the palette. So that is it for that guy. Again, I'm just not sure if I'm going to continue to use it as often as I do. I haven't used it in a while, probably not for a few weeks now, because I've been using so many newer palettes in my collection. I really have been rotating a lot of other eyeshadows in my collection right now, that I just haven't really used this, just because, again, like, I kind of cringe at when I want to use it, just because I know it's not going to perform as well as it used to. So again, I'm not sure. I will keep you guys posted. Maybe I'll do a 3-month update and let you guys know rather than waiting for halfway through the year. But we'll see how the school year goes, because once the school year starts, I usually don't have this much free time to film. That's why I try to film as many possible videos as I can in January. So the next palette, I just want to concentrate on this one eyeshadow still. Maybe I'll try and hit pan on another one. But I'm talking about the Dose of Colors Baked Browns eyeshadow palette, and you guys know I hit pan on the shade Outdoorsy earlier last year, and I think I'm just going to try and work on that shade even more. And then the other shade I might try and possibly try to hit pan on is the shade Deserted, which these two shades I use constantly in my crease every single time I use this palette. But I don't use this palette as often as I used to last year. Again, I'm just trying to use as many palettes as I can this month and really just utilize eyeshadows in my collection and just use like different, I always use different eyeshadows every single day. I never use the same eyeshadows every day unless I use like ColourPop a couple times, or if I'm testing out a new palette, I'll use it a few times during the week, but that'll be like the only time that I'll really concentrate on using one specific palette. But I haven't used this one in a little while as well, because again, I've just been rotating a lot of eyeshadows. I was planning on using it probably this weekend with like a ColourPop shadow. But this is a really great pairing palette, but I'm going to try and see if I can hit pan on another shade in this. It probably won't happen, but we'll see. Because these are beautiful. Again, it depends on how much I actually reach for this year. It's good, but I definitely don't use it as often as I used to, just because I have so many other eyeshadows in my collection. I'm not saying that it's like any of my opinion has changed about it. I'm just saying I don't reach for it as often because I have a lot of other palettes in rotation usually. I'm going to just talk about this one real quick. I know I've never actually hit pan on this, but I'm just going to mention Silk Teddy again. I did finally use this palette a couple of days ago. I really don't reach for it as much as I used to at all anymore. You guys know my thoughts on Too Faced have really changed over the past couple of years, and this really isn't like my holy grail eyeshadow palette anymore. And also the same thing with like the Chocolate Bar. It's really not like one of my holy grail palettes. But the shade Silk Teddy is definitely the one I have the biggest dent in. If you guys can see, there is a huge dip in this palette. I'm not going to go myself to use up Luscious or anything like that. I pulled out one Too Faced palette. If I don't pan this shade by now, I'm just not going to pan it anymore. But I'm going to try and give it one last hurrah and see if I'm actually going to pan it. I'm not going to go myself again to use up anything else, any other type of Too Faced palette. It's just going to be this one. Because again, I go myself to use up too many palettes and it just ends up not happening. The one palette that I really want to hit pan on this year is Dream Street. So these other palettes are probably just going to be a long shot if I end up panning them. So that is the one palette I'm going to mention again that I'm still going to try and hit pan at least on Silk Teddy because I've been trying to pan that palette for forever. Okay, then I've also mentioned this one in the past as well, but again, I just want to mention it real quick, the Tarte Tartelette and Bloom palette. Again, I really don't reach for this palette all that much anymore. I really don't love Tarte as a brand anymore, and I don't think this palette really performs as well as I thought it did. Every time I do end up using it, which is like a few times every couple of months, I just find it does not perform the same. But I do have a huge dip in Flower Child, so I want to continue to try and work on that guy. It is a beautiful, soft eyeshadow formula, and again, it's a very big dip in the actual pan of that shade. So I do usually use it as my transition shade when I use this palette. So I'm going to try and keep on using that guy. I'm not going to try and go myself to use anything else. Maybe Funny Girl, this shade right here, I do have a pretty big dip in as well, and I use that on my inner corners every time I use the palette. I'm going to try and work this into my rotation this month and use this palette when I can. So it's just like I really don't end up reaching for this anymore. This is like the only Tarte palette that I have in my collection. But I'm going to try and use it at least at some point this month. And then the last one is the Manny MUA Makeup Geek palette. And I did tell you guys that I was trying to hit pan on the shade Luna, which is the foiled shadow in this palette, and it's a really beautiful shade. Again, I am not too crazy about Manny MUA anymore. A lot of people aren't really crazy about him anymore. But I did pick up his palette, and I did pick up his Ofra collaboration, and I do use them when I can, and I do still use some of his makeup products. So I do actually really enjoy this palette, and I really do enjoy the Ofra liquid lipstick. So we'll see if I hit pan on this shade. I do have a pretty big dent in that guy, so we'll see how long it takes me to hit pan on that, or if I even hit pan on it at all. Alright, so now we're going to move on to some highlighters. I'm going to go myself to use up a couple this year, to like just try and pan a couple. I do use some of these quite often, so I'm going to try and hit pan on the Lancome Dual Finish Highlighter Multitasking Illuminating Powder All Day Wear in the shade Sparkling Peach. This has become probably my top 3 favorite highlighter of all time, which is probably going to be the next 2 that I'm talking about as well. I love how that just closed on me. But I absolutely freaking love this highlighter so much, and I have a pretty big dent on the center of this pan, which is right there. So I want to try and possibly hit pan on it this year. I'm not promising you guys anything, but it is one of my most used highlighters in my whole collection. That is a terrible swatch. That's a little bit better. It's just so reflective, so intense, so beautiful. It always looks wet on the cheeks. It has like that cream to powder formula. I told you guys that the Physicians Formula highlighter is like a pretty good dupe for that kind of formula, and so is ColourPop. But the shade of this one is a lot more unique as compared to the Physicians Formula. But I'm going to try and hit pan on this one. Again, if I try to use up any type of highlighter, like, it usually doesn't happen. I still have, like, not hit pan on any other highlighters in my collection besides Opal and Champagne Pop from Becca. And that was, like, 2 years ago. So I haven't hit pan on any highlighters this past year. So I'm hoping I'll hit pan on this guy because I do use this a lot. I definitely use this highlighter at least once a week. And I love it, and I love mixing it with other highlighters. So we'll see. I'm not wearing any of these highlighters I'm mentioning today. I really have been trying to rotate a lot of highlighters in my collection. The next one I wanted to talk about is Ofra's Rodeo Drive. You guys know I absolutely love Ofra's highlighting formula. I do end up reaching for these a lot more than I used to the past couple of months, just because I had so many other highlighters I was testing out. I wasn't using these as often, and then I like decided to use these a lot through Christmas again. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a little bit of a dent on the center of the pan. So who knows? This is like one of my all-time favorite gold highlighters besides Dose of Colors Fuego, but I'm probably not going to hit pan on that one, but watch, it's probably going to be the one that I hit pan on. But this one is just so stunning. If I could actually show you guys the reflection, if the light doesn't blind you. But it really is a stunning gold highlighter, so that one is one of my favorites, and it's a beautiful, intense gold, and I love Ofra's highlighting formula, so this one is a great one as well. And then the last, like, gold highlighter I'm going to try and hit pan on. I use this highlighter so freaking much, like, every time I use gold, or, like, some type of gold highlighter, I always end up putting this on top. I don't know why, like, it just has this beautiful subtlety to it that's just like a pure, intense glow. And like I said, I don't even love Amrezy, honestly. I just love this highlighter. So this is the Anastasia Amrezy highlighter, excuse me. And I'm going to try and hit pan on this year. Again, I use it a ton. I am surprised I haven't really made any progress in it. It's just stunning. Like, it just has this beautiful reflectiveness to it. It's so subtle, but it still has this beautiful intensity. And I just think it's a really beautiful highlighter for a lot of different skin tones. And I use this, again, I use it constantly when I use gold. So I'm going to try and hit pan on this guy this year. I will see how it goes with all these highlighters, but since I use highlighter every single day and I love it, I want to see if I can try and hit pan on another one. And then the last two I'm going to mention, just because I use the corner of these highlighters a ton, that I'm getting pretty big dents in them. I want to see if I can try to hit pan on that part of the highlight. So this is the Wet n Wild Mega Glow Highlighting Powder in the shade I'm not wearing any of these today. I'm wearing Milani's Afterglow highlighter, and then I topped it with the e.l.f. Moonlit Pearls highlighter. So I wanted to do like a drugstore combo today, and I think it looks really pretty. But I use this a ton as well, and this is a beautiful rose gold highlighter. It's not as pink as the Master Chrome by Face Studio highlighter, and it's a little bit darker than the rose gold from Burberry. But this one is also a beautiful highlight. This is such a beautiful highlighting formula from the drugstore. So I want to see if I can try and hit pan on this part of the pan, since this is basically what I use in the palette, because I love the design in this palette so much that I just love using the top right hand corner. But I do use this a ton, so we'll see. Like, it takes me forever to go through a highlighter or even try and hit pan on one. So we'll see how the year goes. I'm really excited this year. And then the last one, the last highlighter is Blossom Glow. Again, why do I keep on closing the actual tops? But this one, again, is a gorgeous, intense pink highlight, and it really is an amazing highlighter from the drugstore as well. This one was just as amazing as Precious Petals. I absolutely love this highlight. When I tried out the Physicians Formula and when I tried out the Wet n Wild, I had to go pick up another shade after I tried Precious Petals, and these are both amazing, so I love these highlighters. And this one is Blossom Glow, which is a beautiful, intense pink. So I'm going to try and possibly hit pan on that one as well. So that is it for highlights. Now let's move on to just one bronzer. So I love this bronzer, and I pretty much have pan in every single other bronzer in my collection, except for this one, because I picked this one up like last summer. And this is one of my most used bronzers, like, in general, because I just love it. It's so amazing. And this one is the Milani Baked Bronzer in the shade Dolce. And I reach for this a ton over my Physicians Formula or other, like, light bronzers in my collection. I absolutely love this. I love the Physicians Formula still, and I have pan on that one, but I want to try and hit pan on this one this year. I feel like this one has a ton of product, and since it's a baked product, I feel like it would take a lot longer to hit pan on. Um, but it's just such a beautiful, silky, smooth highlighter, and I'm dropping the powder thingy out of the bottom of it. But this is also just a stunning, lightweight, baked formula, and it just always looks so natural on the skin. You can build it up so much, and it doesn't look too heavy at all. I'm wearing it on my face today, and it's just one of my favorite bronzers to wear for super natural days, or just something that you want to just add a little bit of color to your face. It's amazing. I love this bronzer so much. It's just so lightweight and so stunning on the skin. So I want to try and hit pan on this one this year. That's the only bronzer I'm going to talk about. And then just two setting powders. The first one is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish Skin Perfecting Micro Powder in the shade Fair. I pretty much have pan or like super pan on the Giorgio Armani powder that this is the only new pressed powder that I added to my collection this past month or so. And if I want to add any new ones, I'll just pick them up from the drugstore, like if I end up using up the Wet n Wild or the NYX or the Maybelline Fit Me, which I have pan on all of those. This is the only other powder I'm going to be trying to hit pan on this year. I already have a pretty big dent on the center of it. I just use this powder almost every single day. I mean, I've been using the Hourglass the past few days, and sorry, my boyfriend finally decided to text me back, and now I'm giving him a hard time about picking me up at some point. He takes forever. So this one is just, it's so freaking smooth, and it basically has replaced my Giorgio Armani powder. You're not really going to be able to see it, but I just like blended it into the skin. And I feel like it feels basically exactly the same as the Giorgio Armani powder. I don't know if anybody else feels this way. Um, but it has that silky smooth formula, and it just looks beautiful on the skin. It never looks powdery. It doesn't look heavy. It just makes your skin look airbrushed and beautiful. So I've been loving this powder so much. This is definitely my favorite item I picked up from her besides the lipstick. And this powder, it really is silky smooth. I feel like my Giorgio Armani powder isn't really performing as well as it used to, since I have such a big substantial pan on it, and I keep on scraping like the outer parts of it. So we'll see if I hit pan on this. I don't think it's going to be too difficult for me to hit pan on it at all, because I use it so often. So, and then the next powder, which I feel like lasts a pretty long time, even though people said there's not that much product in here. I still have a ton of product in here. This is the ColourPop No Filter Setting Powder, and this is pretty much the powder that I use to set my under eyes every day. So I'm going to try and use it up the next couple of months. It's probably not going to be a problem for me. I've been using the Hourglass powder the last couple of days to set everything and to set under my eyes, and it really has been beautiful. I feel like my skin looks very like natural, and I'm just wearing concealer today, by the way. I didn't feel like wearing foundation today because I've been wearing foundation like every day. I decided to take a break from it today because I'm working tomorrow anyway, and my boyfriend's just picking me up, so it's not like a huge deal for me to wear foundation. But this one I do use every single day underneath my eyes, and I love it underneath my eyes, and I also use it to set my primer. So I don't think this is going to be too difficult for me to use up at all. So that is the only other powder I'm going to go myself to use up. And then, of course, I have to talk about NARS's Madly. I mean, I've been trying to hit pan on this for like 2 years already. So we're just going to mention it again. Maybe this will be the year where I hit pan on it. This is my most reached for, most used blush in my whole collection. So I really hope we hit pan on it this year. Blame Kathleen Lights for turning me on to this blush because it's just my most used favorite blush ever. I love it so much. And every time I wear it, my sister's like, oh, it's too peachy on your skin. It's too apricot-y. I don't love it on your skin. But I love it. I love this blush. I love how it looks. And I don't care what people say. I love this blush. So, that is it for powder products. Now we're just going to move on to a couple of lipsticks. I'm just going to mention the same 3 MAC lipsticks that I mention literally every single year. Maybe this will be the year where I actually use one of them up. The first one is MAC's Blankety, and this is how much I've used this guy, and I'm actually wearing Blankety on my lips today. I just wanted a very light nude that was a little bit of glossiness to it, and Blankety is always the best choice because it has such a beautiful shine to it. Again, Blankety is the only... Why am I wiping this off? Like, I'm literally putting tissue on it, like, and then it's just becoming fuzzy and annoying, so... hold on one second. Alright, let's keep on talking about the lipsticks I was talking about. I'm still waiting for my boyfriend. I actually ended up being on the phone with my best friend for almost an hour because I ended up being cut from work tomorrow, so now I don't have to work tomorrow or Thursday, so I actually have plans to see my best friend tomorrow, and I'm actually going to see one of my other friends, and we're going to go to the movies. Because I just need to go out with my friends at some point, so hopefully that will all happen tomorrow. I'm actually texting a bunch of my girlfriends to go to happy hour tomorrow because since I ended up having the night off, originally I was going to go to lunch with Liz before work, but since my manager ended up cutting me tomorrow, I'm just going to work Friday through Monday instead of working tomorrow. It just makes more sense. I did work Sunday and Monday, so now I have today off, tomorrow off, and Thursday off again. So now I have 3 days in a row again, which I could have just went to Connecticut at that point if I knew I was going to be off tomorrow. But since I want to go to the city with my boyfriend on Thursday, I'm just going to go visit my best friend next week. So let's continue talking about the lipsticks I was talking about. So the first one I was talking about that's on my lips is Blankety, and this is how much progress I have in that one. So pretty substantial progress. The next one is Honey Love, and this one I've had to goal myself up. I have had to goal myself to try and use more for forever. So this is the progress that I have on this one, and this one is a matte finish, and it's a nude MAC lipstick, and it's one of my all-time favorite lipsticks, so we'll see if I can make any more progress on this guy this year. I need to finish up this video already. And then the last one is Velvet Teddy, which is my all-time favorite nude, and we'll see if I can get any more progress on this one this year. I've talked about these a million times. I'm trying to use them up more, so I feel like maybe this year will be the year that I actually end up using them up. And then the last one I have like a ton of progress on that maybe I'll end up using it up this year. This is ColourPop's Lippy Stick in the shade Aquarius. This is a cream finish, and this is Kathleen Light's lipstick, and I did talk about this in the products I used up in 2018. And look how much progress I have on this guy. Again, I don't know if it's jammed, but if I end up using up this little bit this year, that would be freaking awesome. This would be the first lippy stick that I finish at all. So we'll see if there's anything underneath that, but even if there is, I'm going to declare it being used up because this is one of my most worn lipsticks in my whole collection, and I love it. Alright, so now just a few foundations. The first one I want to use up this year is the Burberry Soft Cashmere, Burberry Cashmere Long Lasting Flawless Soft Matte Foundation in the shade Porcelain number 11. This is one of my favorite foundations. I mentioned this in my Best in Beauty. I love this foundation, and I feel like this is getting pretty light. So I feel like it's probably not going to be very hard for me to use up this foundation at some point. So it's one of my favorite foundations. It's beautiful, soft, matte finish. and it's just very easy to wear and it's super comfortable on the skin. So I want to see if I can use this one up. The next one is one that I have already used up, but I'm going to try and goal myself to use up another bottle, and this is the Lancome Teint Idol Ultra Wear foundation in the shade 210 Buff N. This is one of my all-time favorite full coverage foundations. It's amazing, so I'm going to try and use that one up. And then the one I want to focus on to use up this year is the Physicians Formula, the Healthy Foundation in the shade LC1. This is one of my favorite light coverage foundations, and I don't think it's going to be too hard for me to use this guy up. I'm pretty far down into the bottle. I can't really see how much progress I've made in this one, but I use this one a ton, and this is one of my favorite light coverage foundations. I would have used it today, but again, I just wanted to wear concealer today because I knew I was just going to his house. I just don't know what time he's showing up because he texted me an hour ago saying that he was getting ready, so I'm sure he probably left and just didn't text me that he was leaving. Then the next one, which I have used up before, and I just want to goal myself to use up another bottle, is the Maybelline Fit Me Dewy and Smooth foundation in the shade 110 Porcelain. This is one of my all-time favorite dewy foundations, and I love it, so I wanted to see if I could use up this one as well again. And then a full coverage option would be the L'Oreal Paris True Match Titanium Dioxide Sunscreen Broad Spectrum SPF 17 and Warm Porcelain W1. I was like, warm pore. This is one of my all-time favorite full coverage foundations. I use this a ton, so I'm going to try and use that one up as well. I'm just going to breeze through these real quickly. If you want to hear my full thoughts about them, check out my Best in Beauty video because I talk about all of these and how much I love them. And then the last one, probably not going to use this one up, but I do love this as a full coverage option as well, as the CoverGirl Outlast All Day Stay Fabulous 3-in-1 foundation in the shade Classic Ivory. Also one of my favorite full coverage options, so I'm going to see if I can use up this one as well. And might as well throw in the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Foundation and see if I can use up my 5th bottle in the shade 2, one of my favorite foundations as well. I love this guy, so we're going to see if we can use up this one again. Probably won't be any problem since I use that one up so often. And then for concealers, I mean, I don't really have to goal myself up to use any concealers because it's really not hard for me to use up concealers. The only one I'm going to try and goal myself to use up is the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea concealer in the shade Fair. This is my second one, so I'm going to try and goal myself to use up my second bottle of it and probably use up my ColourPop No Filter concealer in Fair 2 and also Fair 8, which shouldn't be any problem, and probably use up my 5th Maybelline Fit Me concealer and my 6th Naked Skin concealer, and what's the other one? My 3rd Maybelline Instant Age Rewind. I mean, these are all concealers I use all of the time, and probably use up my 2nd Wet n Wild concealer. So I know the concealers that I love and I use up, so I don't think it's going to be very hard for me to use up any of these. And then the Maybelline Master Conceal. And yeah, that's pretty much it, you guys. So please like and subscribe. Follow me on all my social media. I love you guys. And let me know what you guys are trying to goal yourself up. Goal yourself to use up. Why am I saying goal yourself up? Goal yourself up. Like, goal yourself up. Hashtag. Like, it's so stupid. So yeah, let me know what you guys are trying to use up this year, and let me know what your tips are on trying to use up products, because it's very hard for me to use up certain products. Again, the only products I truly use up are foundations and concealers. So yeah, I love you guys, and bye!